Welcome everybody. There we go. Let's make sure we get those tidied up. This Raising the Bar series 12 out of 12. It is unique ways to build a database, and hopefully over the next couple of hours we can share some good ideas on this, share some principles and concepts that may be helpful to us as we strive to build our database. Just to remind us, if anybody's just joined us, what those rules are from the division for this 2-hour CE credit. Of course, have your full name displayed on the screen, have your video turned on, obviously be in attendance for the whole of class and be seen and engaged. And I'll share with you 3 keywords during the next couple of hours when this little icon shows, and they'll flash on the screen. Leslie-Ann will share with you a link to a Google form at the end of this class so that you can enter those keywords and get your hours banked. So welcome today. We've got a few people who have been with us this week already, or last week, and we welcome you. And anybody who's joining us for the first time. So Raising the Bar series is part of Jennifer Yar, principal broker here at Presidio Real Estate, who has come up with this concept, hoping that everybody might raise their bar as realtors. She has said this: irrespective of how much we get paid on a transaction, our overall objective from the outset should be to give 100% of our efforts to our client to ensure a smooth transaction. Hopefully we can do that, whichever brokerage we're representing, or with. Hopefully we can raise our bar in this industry and serve the people, our clients, better each day, month, year, and onwards. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th US president, said this: it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. So hopefully we can make today count. We'll cover the following areas today, hopefully. And please just unmute and chime in if you have anything to contribute or share, or any questions or thoughts or comments. I believe we can all learn from each other, irrespective of how long we have been in the industry for. We have some new agents with us today. I know we already have some seasoned agents because I recognize you. But share your ideas, and stories are always good because people remember stories, and then they remember the principles and concepts behind those stories. So we'll try and just review general things, obviously what a database is. We'll go through that and see if my internet has paused for a moment. So let me just load that one in again. Every now and again, it does that. The internet does pause a little bit here. Okay. So we'll go through a few things. We'll talk about the database. We'll talk about client information. We'll refer to reconnecting to those that we've probably lost connections with. Ways to increase our database, client appreciation, and how to prioritize and make a difference in our scheduling. So that's what we'll try and cover in the next couple of hours. And as I said before, I can't see everybody, so just literally unmute and chime in if you have anything you'd like to say or add to, or a question. So first of all, what is a customer database? Well, of course, it's a collection of information about people. That's the business we are in. And I'd encourage you first to know about the people you're working with. Get to know your customers, your clients, and things about them. You know, it's when we deal with so many different people over multiple years, sometimes we can forget some of the detail in their lives, and it's nice when we reconnect with our customers or our clients or our contacts if we can remember something about them. So always have a column in your database to put notes in so that you can remember maybe your last conversation or what was highlighted in that conversation with those with whom you are working with. There are lots of different software packages available on the market today. Here are some of them. You may recognize some of these, and these are software packages that are designed solely for real estate. There are obviously others as well, but these are probably the top 8 or 9 of them. If you've not got a package you're using and you're building your own, that's totally fine as well. Whether you're using Numbers or Excel or some other easy built database programs that come with different computer packages. You can build it from or however you would like to. But I'm going to share with you concepts and information that might be helpful as you put this together. Of course, Generally speaking, we're looking at those 5 little areas: name, address, phone number, email, website, and then maybe if there's any other useful information, we would add in there. So let's just look at these in a little detail. Today we have many names that are unisex, so make sure in your database you have got a note down that you are speaking to a male or a female, because sometimes the name itself may not indicate that it's a man or a woman that you've got noted in there. Really good idea to use the name by which they're known, and make sure it's spelled correctly. I know lots of people that have they have names that they're known by which are not their names. I know Rodney who goes by Hoss. I know a Suzanne who goes by Mickey. I know a Jeffrey who goes by Benny, and these are just nicknames that for whatever reason they've come up with, and people refer to them as their names, but they're not their actual names. So when you're working with contacts, try and figure out what name they are used to being addressed by, and use that name, because that will be more comfortable for them to receive. And obviously make sure it's spelled correctly. I've noticed over here, certainly in the US, there's lots of different ways of spelling lots of different names. Here's one you might consider interesting. Now look at the word Chelsea, for instance. Obviously I'm from England. Growing up in England, we never knew anybody called Chelsea. The only Chelsea we knew was the Chelsea Football Club. I mean, if you follow soccer, you may recognize that symbol. But in England, Chelsea would be the name of a football club, or soccer club as they refer to it today. But today, if we want to got our friend there who's Chelsea, want to figure out how to spell her name, there's actually 10 different ways of spelling that name. And we need to make sure that we're spelling the name correctly, because once we put it into our database, we most likely will not change it or forget about it. And when it comes up to sending out information to that person, if we've got their name spelled incorrectly every time, they will know that we have not been paying attention. Anybody like to comment on how important it is that we spell names correctly? Anybody got names here that are either difficult for people to remember how to spell or even pronounce correctly? Let me just look at who we got on here.
I guess I'll speak up, Rosemary.
Rosemary, how are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. How long have you been a realtor for, Rosemary?
2 weeks.
Fantastic. We're glad to have you with us today.
Yeah.
We all clap our hands and say, well done for getting through those tests.
Right.
You'll never take those again.
No, never, hopefully.
I remember I took mine, I thought I was speaking Chinese or trying to read Chinese. It's so difficult to get those correctly passed through. So well done on that. Well done. Glad to have you with us today. So tell us about this.
I know, well, for me personally, I have 3 different names I go by: Rosemary, Rose, and or Rosie. And I'm also a massage therapist, and with my clientele through there, which kind of relates, it really just helps build a relationship, spelling and or saying their name right off. So that way they build that trust and you build that relationship right away with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Rosemary, because it's really easy to get this right when we first make contact with people. It's really easy to say, oh yeah, that's great. How do you spell that name, or how do you pronounce it? So that we can just remember ourselves to record it correctly. So yeah, very, very good.
I've also noticed that if you've got a different name and I ask somebody, okay, how do you spell that? Then I remember the name better. Does that make sense? Because I can see the letters and I go, oh, that makes sense. But when they say their name and it's different, I go, how do you spell that? And that helps me remember it till I can write it down. So
thanks, Shireen, for that. And I think also on that note, Shireen, I think they appreciate it. People appreciate it when you ask them how you spell the name, because they know you're interested in getting that part of.
Well, they know you didn't just hear it and dismiss it too, when it's really different. I mean, obviously there's different ways to spell Stephen. So you can say, do you spell it the S-T-E-B-E-N, or do you spell it the way you spell it?
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of ways to use that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to say, you know, how do you prefer to be addressed, you know, called, because some people will tell you their name, but that's not usually how they like to be addressed. Sometimes, you know, oh yeah, my name's James, but yeah, people call me Jim. And so it's really good to figure that out from the outset. Any other thoughts or comments on the importance of getting these names right? Okay, here's some other thoughts that might be helpful. There are a lot of people that might have a prefix or a suffix that they would rather have used when they are being addressed. Even in this modern world, we have people that would prefer to use a prefix, or in some cases there may be a suffix. I've noticed over here, certainly in the USA, there are quite a few folk that have the second or the third or the junior or the senior as a suffix that they quite like to be used as they're addressed, or, you know, as particular mail or correspondence comes to them. So it's a really good idea if you're able to figure that out from the outset, so you can have it in your database. And once you've got that right, hopefully it will be an advantage for you as you work with contacting these folk. I just mentioned earlier, make sure you pronounce the names correctly. I noticed a few people that may have unusual names or names that have come from other countries, and sometimes it's difficult for us to pronounce them correctly using our own English or American English style of pronunciations. So let's just make sure we pronounce it.
Even I've also had issues where the junior will be on title. And so if you go to sell a house and you leave the junior off, you've got title wrong. And that creates a problem. So you got to know, you know, if you're selling someone's house, if they've got a junior or a senior or a second on there, you got to have it for title.
Yeah. Otherwise, you end up having to do those addendums at the last minute when title says, hey, Shireen, do you know this person's a junior? Oh, really? Yeah, it's really important if we can get just squeaky clean on this right from the outset. Then when we do come to work with our contracts and agreements, we already know what we're working with. And it's much easier to get it right at the beginning, to try and tidy up, you know, at the end of the day. So thanks for highlighting that. Any other thoughts or comments on that screen, or anybody like to add to? Anybody got any stories they'd like to share? Someone's continually got their name wrong, even though they tell them how to spell it.
Can I? I'll chime in. I'm a classic. My name is hyphenated. Leslie is my dad's name, and Anne is my mum's name. And in England, Leslie is the masculine spelling of Leslie, and the feminine is Lesley. So most people here, if they don't ask me like Shireen said, they will spell it Leslie. But to me, I like to see my name spelt and said properly. And sometimes people will ask my name and I'll say it's Leslie Ann, and they'll go, oh, great, thanks, Leslie. I'm like, no, it's Leslie Ann. I think because it's my dad's name, and obviously he's male, I associate that spelling with the masculine, and so it is important to me that people call me by my full name and not shorten it. And so I think the key here is that we really need to make the effort to understand how our clients want to be addressed, whether or not we like it or we don't like the way they say their name or spell it. That's not our place. We should address them as they like to be addressed.
Super, thanks, Leslie Ann. Yeah, so it may seem like a real simple thing, but if we get this piece of the puzzle right and we're building our databases, we are going to be received much, much better and more comfortably from those that we may be sending information to. So it's a real simple thing, but it's real easy to get it wrong if we don't take time right from the outset to get this right. Okay, that brings us up to our first keyword today, and that will be person, P-E-R-S-O-N. That should be on your screen, just shouting out. So just write that down. We'll not give that keyword again, and we cannot share it on chat or share it with each other. So there it is. Person will be the first keyword on this class today. All right, so let's carry on and see what else we can remember on this. So address, really good idea when you're working on addresses to figure out what the correct address is. Sometimes, we miss out the wests or the easts, or this, we miss out an extra piece of a name of a road. Sometimes we don't get the zip code correct. Remember, the zip code is, if you can get all 9 digits, that's a real advantage for you. Remember, the first 5 digits are, the first 2 is the state, which is 84, and the other 3 are depending on where you are in Utah. But the last 4 digits were created in the 80s by the US mail company, and it helps them move mail quicker. So if you want your mail to move quicker, if you're using mail, then getting that 9 code zip code is an advantage for you. So there we have that. Obviously, the phone number is important. And when you're working with phone numbers, remember, some folk have multiple different numbers. They may have a landline, they may have, obviously cell phones or different phones, one for business, one for private. Figure out which one it is that they're comfortable for you using, and make sure that is the one that you've got in your database. Again, with email addresses, lots of people have multiple different emails these days, and they can be company emails or just private ones or social media emails. Figure out which email that they are happy for you to use before you just assume and send it to an email they're uncomfortable with, or maybe one they don't use anymore, so your message is not even getting to them. We have a lot of people today that have also personal business websites. Some may even have social media websites. And if that's the case, let's put a note there, because that's another way in which we can communicate to them. But we can also find out about them, particularly if they have a good presence on the internet. We can find out about other interests they have, other things they like to do. And that may help us in our conversation when we're chatting with them. And of course, if you've got a column that will take care of any other useful information that might talk about, some of the circumstances or vacations, hobbies, family, or whatever they may be doing in their life, you can put some notes in there that may be helpful when you talk to them at a later stage. Any thoughts or comments or any stories you'd like to share on that slide? Very good. Well, just chime in if you've got anything to add here. So on those 5/6 little bullet points there, let's make sure we can get that information correct from the outset. It will certainly be beneficial to us down the track. And we never know who our contact or which of our contacts will eventually become clients. And sometimes it's quite a surprise, the ones that actually filter the top and become a client. So let's make sure that we treat everybody with the same detail and attention as possible. All right, let's look at some client information. A few things that we might consider when we're building a database. So it's a good idea to know, who our current clients are. We're going to have some that we're working with. We may be working with them for several months if they're on a build or whatever. But we have got a contract with them, so we can figure out who they are, and then whether or not we're working with them as a buyer or a seller, or hopefully really good idea to work with both of those transactions. It's really good to have records of any completed transactions we've had with those clients. And then maybe we can make a note somewhere about how they became our client. Maybe it's a family member, or maybe it's a friend, or someone referred them to us. Or it may have been someone that had come to an open house or followed up with a for sale sign or some sort of advertising. Really good idea to make some notes on those platforms, because that can be helpful down the track when we can see what is working for us. After so many years, we have 50 clients. We can see where the majority of those contacts are coming from, and we can see how successful our marketing or advertising is to turn contacts into clients. Any thoughts or comments on that screen? All right. Here's another area you might consider, and that is making up like a status of where your current clients or contacts are. So obviously, if you've got a buyer broker agreement, then you're under contract. to work with them, same as for a listing agreement. Some of these will get to a stage where they become under contract. You can check that in there. If you've got a moving database on a website or something, you can add that in there. And of course, when it's completed, you'll put down the dates. And unfortunately, we do sometimes get lost clients. I will talk about that in a moment, but I'll come back to that one. Progressive contacts can be those that are not clients yet, but you are progressing. You're progressing with a good relationship. Then maybe they've already said, yeah, we're probably thinking of maybe considering selling up or looking at moving, you know, within the next year or couple of years. So that's a progressive contract. Those contacts are interested sometime down the track, hopefully working with you. And then, of course, you've got those that are just not progressing. So maybe they've already said, you know, Steve, it's good to have you call me. That, you know, I'm not interested in, you know, real estate at all. And if I was, I'd probably use my brother because, you know, he's the one that's already done all the sales for our house as well. So that would probably be a non-progressive contact, and maybe they don't need to be on your website, in your database anymore. But we do have lost clients in this industry. I've always been surprised how many people change realtors. Have you seen that? Has everybody else seen that? I was surprised at how many people change from one realtor to another as they go from, you know, one house or one real estate transaction to another. And I've been surprised about that, but that is the case. So we will most likely have a column there for lost clients. And sometimes it's not to do with us. Often it can just be the way circumstances are. We had a client a couple of years ago that we sold their home, very good friends of ours. And then we found out just a few months after they had moved, their sister got a license. So obviously, you know, they would most likely be using their sister for any other transactions. And even though we were good friends, we did a good job, most likely we would lose that client because they would have a family member working with them. Any thoughts or comments on that screen? Anybody here like to talk about lost clients? I know we have some new agents on here who'll be interested to hear about that. Well, let me pull in someone. Let me pull in Ryan. I know Ryan's been in this business for a number of good years. He's probably lost a few clients here and there. Can you hear me, Ryan? Would you like to unmute and tell us a little bit about your experience with, unfortunately, some lost clients that have come your way? You just have to unmute first, Ryan. Just unmute.
Well, my biggest problem is the clients that are non-progressive are usually the ones that are older, trying to move out, and they move out of their house and into a assisted living or something else. And they're.
Thanks, Ryan. What about Stephen? Any thoughts to add on that, Stephen? I know you've been in the business a while as well. How have you lost clients? Can you give us any examples how, you know, you had good clients and they moved, you know, away from your database?
I think people sometimes just try, they want to try something different, and it's sometimes totally out of your control. You can be giving them good service, and maybe they've talked to somebody else, and they just want to try something different just to see, have a different experience. Yeah, very good highlight. You know, our first year, I think we did like 31 transactions in our first year in this business, which was 2012. And all of those people had dealt with other realtors before they dealt with us. So, you know, people do change. And so, you know, we just need to be aware of when that happens, that we're not overburdening them with contracts if they definitely have been lost for a good reason. Any other thoughts or comments on that slide? Okay.
Some other thoughts you may consider here. I found rating clients or contacts can also be helpful when I'm looking back in history. So here are some thoughts you may consider. Previous client, decide how you'll contact them, figure out, what is the best method of contacting that person. Sometimes people prefer, a phone call, or sometimes they may prefer an email, or maybe they just prefer text messaging, or just text through the phone. So just figure out what it is that they would be comfortable with. Obviously, those are our current clients we're going to be continuing communication with. Then we may have some hot prospects. They're not clients, but we are working with them. Maybe we're working with, some CMAs, or we're looking at their home, or we're trying to figure out how we can actually progress them to a client. And these will need to be contacted at regular times to keep them motivated. Hopefully they can hire you. Got those that are warm prospects. Maybe they don't need a contact, that often, maybe a few weeks or a few months. I have a tepid prospect section, so maybe these might just be contacted, every 6 months or a year or so, depending on what it is. They're not really interested, but they're not cold. They're not cold. Any thoughts or comments on that slide? Whoops, that was a bit too quick. That was. Let me just pull that bottom section in again so you don't miss it. Anybody here actually use databases to build information on their contacts or clients? Okay, I'll put a note at the very bottom there. Just make sure that if you have got a lost contact or a lost client who's made it clear to you that they do not want you to contact them again, please be respectful and remove them from your database. And sometimes that will happen, and you don't want to upset people. And certainly, if they've requested no contact, we really should honour that to fall in line with, the advertising rules in the US. So just make sure you remove them from your database if they have said, look, all is good, we're friends, but please don't contact me anymore, I'm going to say. So let's be respectful of that. All right, let's look at this screen here. Who can tell me about the White Rabbit and the watch? I'm sure that someone can tell me about the White Rabbit. And let's see what I've got on this. What about Krista? How about you chiming in on this one? Are you still with us? I don't see anybody.
Yeah.
Krista, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us today. Tell us about this White Rabbit. Where's the White Rabbit come from? What's this watch all about?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm so new in this industry.
The White Rabbit has nothing to do with the industry.
Oh,
Can you remember the film? Can you remember a film where they had the White Rabbit? He kept appearing. Who can help?
Well,
Krista.
Alice.
Ah, yes, Alice in Wonderland.
Wonderland.
There you go. That's who we're talking about. So, have you ever seen that film or read the book, Krista?
I have seen the film. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens? This rabbit keeps appearing, and what happens in the movie? Can you remember?
I have not watched. I watched it with my kids about 20 years ago, so I'm not sure.
So with this out, you remind. This is a little note here: a spark of curiosity. That's what the White Rabbit is. He's a spark of curiosity. Every time he appears, he gets Alice's attention. And he's always in a rush, isn't he? He's always in a rush.
Always, yeah. And I do remember that.
He does motivate her to continue on her journey. And that's how we have to be in this business. We have to be a little bit like the White Rabbit and be a spark of curiosity when we're working with databases. We need to be able to make them creative, make them interesting. So when people receive information from us, they are thinking, well, that's interesting. Maybe I'll read on further, and maybe the information that this person has given me is worth a more detailed look. So think about that when you're building advertising platforms or marketing plans. try and figure out how you can be a spark of curiosity, because people buy you because they like you. You know, there's whatever it is it 17, 18,000 realtors in Utah, about 3 million realtors in the USA. So lots of different real estate agents, but we're all different. And that's the beauty of the industry. It's because we're all different, we all have something different to offer. So I just mentioned that the white rabbit there is try and thinking yourself, well, what can I do to be a spark of curiosity? What can I do to be different, to stand out, and to be something or someone that people will remember and be interested in, hopefully, contacting me, responding to me. Any other thoughts on the rabbit? Okay, I've got to wake you guys up. I must be sending you to sleep.
I really love that. Thank you.
Super. And you'll have a great time in this industry, Krista. If you're brand new, some of these things will be
Well, I'm
helpful.
not brand new, but I did have to take about 7 months away from doing it
Right.
and training.
Okay. Yeah. So you're back in the game. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So here are a few things I might think about. Now, I put down here, there are 5 main different ways in which we can approach people. Obviously, in person is most definitely the best way. If we can be in front of someone and we can actually be in their space, you know, 3-dimensional contact, you know, that is definitely going to be the best way in which we will build a relationship with our contacts and our clients. Second area, of course, telephone or FaceTime. FaceTime, they can still see us. Phone, we're still engaging. Then we move to the text platform, which also can be very engaging, but it's a different experience. You know, it's not as strong as the other 2 platforms. Then we have email, of course, and then we have mail. And if you are going to work with mail, consider handwritten mail or something handwritten in those mails, which will have a stronger impact when that mail is received. Any thoughts or comments on that little group of thoughts there? Consider when you're going to contact people. Usually you're working on monthly, quarterly, twice a year, or yearly. Sometimes you'll have different timeframes, but when you've got a contact and you're going to put them into your database, you've got to think, okay, you know, that was a good experience. I'm going to put them down to review, you know, 4 times a year, quarterly, and you'll put them in the calendar. So when the calendar comes up, you'll see that week and you'll see that person in there. This will be a quarterly call. You'll see some other people in there. There'll be monthly calls, and then you may see some other people in there that are either, you know, 6 monthly calls or yearly calls, and they'll all come up in that week. And then that's how you follow up on those people. But you need to log it somewhere in your database as to when you will contact them. And then you'll review that, and you may adjust it when you've contacted them to more regular or less regular. Any comments or thoughts on that screen? All right, let's talk about reconnecting. Reconnecting to long lost contacts. Lots of connections there. So just remember, you know, in the technical world, we have different connectors for different connections. And it's pretty important to use the right connection for your connector. And in this case, use your right connection for your contact. People prefer different ways of being connected. So think about that when you're working with people. Put some notes down here that might be helpful. Never too long to or too late to reconnect to a long lost contact. Take action, reach out to someone you've not been able to be in contact for a long time. Ask them how they are, what they're doing these days, and you can obviously share with them what you're doing, because they'll most likely ask you what you're doing. If it has been a long time that you've reached out to someone, just be sure to apologize for falling out of touch, and hopefully you know, you can reconnect with that person and have a new good relationship with them. Any thoughts or comments on reconnecting? Do we have any agents here that have actually reconnected to someone that they may have lost contact with, or maybe have not contacted for a long period of time? Okay, you guys know how I work, don't you? If nobody responds, I just pick someone off my list.
I have an
Let's see.
experience, if you
Yes,
want.
thank you.
I was showing a couple some very expensive homes, and it was 209. So in that market, and
Okay.
I noticed the lady liked a certain style of home, and so then they just kind of were looking, and it wasn't a waste of time because I got to know them, but they disappeared. I mean, they kind of just quit looking. And so
Right.
6 months later, I noticed this certain style of home went on the market in Provo and on a big lot. And so I just sent it to them saying, hey, by the way, I know her name happened to be Lisa. I know your wife, Lisa, loves this style home. This just came on the market. So they reconnected with me because they wanted to see that home. And then they ended up buying $1.9 million up above the Capitol. And I sold $1.9 million that year because I reconnected with them over the style of home that she liked.
Shereen, that is
That's
a
a
great
good
story.
story. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of bad stories, but
Yeah.
there's my good story.
That's a brilliant story. And for those of us who are thinking, too much effort to try and reconnect, think about the story. I'm a big believer. If you would share stories, you think about the stories, that could be me next time, you know. But if you'd not made the reconnection, Shereen, you would not have got the deal. That's
Right,
sure.
exactly. She would have never known that house was on the market. And that's not the house they bought, but it reconnected us.
Yeah. And it also showed them that you were interested in them, and you had, in their minds, you've been looking and watching and listening for a long period of time. And then when something met their criteria, you were able to, you know, reach out to. That's a great story. Anybody else got any good stories like that to share? Well, Shereen's story was a good one. I'm not saying it might be as good as that. You might just have a normal story, but that's a great story. All right, just think about reconnecting. There's some other thoughts you might consider on reconnecting. So obviously, many of us have lost contact with someone in our past real estate clients. Figure out what you can do to re-establish some of those relationships. There is a stat here, which I found on the NAR, which says the average real estate agent loses over 20% of clients annually. So think about that and think about what you can do to prevent you losing or us losing those connections. The good news is, of course, it's never too late to reconnect. But if you're looking at, you know, a real estate agent that does 5 deals in a year, then one of those on average is going to be lost. And we've lost clients where we've just lost them. We've just lost them. And it's not necessary because, you know, anybody's done anything wrong. We probably just haven't done enough to keep connections with those previous clients because we help them. Anybody got any other comments on that slide or any stories they'd like to add or share? Here's some other thoughts on reconnecting that might be helpful. So when you do connect with someone, make sure that you are able to figure out their contact details, because that's why you're reconnecting to them. And, you know, it's good to work in the third party and remind them that you are always interested and appreciate any referrals that can come your way. They may not be interested in dealing with real estate, but obviously they know people and maybe they know someone who might be able to have help from you. I'll put a note there: once you've reconnected with your friend or family member, assign them to your regular contacting system, whether it be by meeting in person, by phone, email, newsletter, or whatever. So when you do make that reconnection, because we run such busy lives, just make sure you open up your database and put a note in there so that you don't lose that contact, and so that contact will come up when you decided to reconnect with them again on you know, opportunities or interests to do some work with them. Any other thoughts on reconnecting? Okay, anybody here who has not reconnected is now thinking that maybe they might reconnect with some old clients, having heard of Shireen's successful story there. I can see Stephen smiling, so he's thinking, yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. All right. Anybody use newsletters? This is one that Presidio uses. Actually, last year's, but it's still on the screen here. But this is a good example of simple newsletters that may not have any information necessarily about real estate, but are just talking about, you know, general topics that might be interesting for people to read. This one obviously is on healthy food snacks. I put a note here: sending a newsletter to your SOI is a great way of keeping in touch and reminding your clients and contacts that you have a professional and a qualified real estate agent ready and able to assist them. For those of you who are actually with Presidio, you can have access to the Canva template, which enables you to take that newsletter that Presidio produce every month, and you can change it as you would like and make it more personal. And those of you who are with other brokers, if you don't know, I would suggest you talk to your broker and see if they do have a newsletter that goes out with the company, and if so, if you can use that and you know, personalize it and add whatever you would like to it. That can also be a good way of making you stand out when you send that out to your contacts. Anybody use newsletters, or anybody have any experience or success stories when they're using newsletters? Okay, let's talk about increasing your database. All right, so if you haven't done this already, really good idea to take an inventory of what you've personally got in your personal and professional networks, because that's where you're going to start. And hopefully we can build on that platform. Anybody at the moment has a functioning database? Anybody actually use a functioning database? Must have someone on this class that uses the database. I'm just going to pull out of this while you're thinking about it. I'll give you some thoughts. All right then, let's see who I can bring in today. Let's bring in Bailey. Bailey, how are you today? How would you like to unmute and chime in, I mean, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
How long have you been a realtor, Bailey?
About 6 months.
Perfect. Have you got any transactions or any clients you're working with at the moment?
Yes, I do. We're working with the subdivision, so we have a few.
Perfect. Great. Tell us how you got those clients.
So a lot of them are friends and family. It's kind of a family business we've got going now. My dad's the contractor for the subdivision.
Okay.
So a lot of them are those. We've also had people contact us through our website. So.
Good. So is your dad like a building contractor and he's got his own website? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then you've got your license to kind of help take care of this little market where you look after clients that will contact your company to hopefully have a house built, I presume.
Yep, that's right.
Perfect. Out of interest, does your dad have a database he works with, or does he just work solely off the website?
It's just the website. We take phone calls, but we don't have a database.
Okay. Is that something you might be thinking of doing?
I haven't thought about it, but this is making me think about it.
Good. So certainly, you know, when you get clients in, it's a good idea to have them on your database, because, you know, they're probably not going to live in that house forever. Some may, but most of them will probably move. Yeah. I've noticed here in the US that people move a lot. They do move around a lot. In England, people wouldn't move, you know. They don't move. They just stay where they are. But here, people move lots of times, even if they're in a brand new, spanking new home that they've had built, you know, after a few years. There are a lot of people that move to a new home. So a really good idea to create a database there.
For sure.
And that will definitely help build your business. Well, we definitely wish you success on that, Bailey. And if you've been in this game for 6 months, you're probably figuring out, you know, all the twists and turns. And there's lots.
Oh, I'm trying. Thanks.
Super. Anybody have any experience where they've worked with, I don't know, some professional people like hairdressers or dentists or opticians, florists, bankers, or anybody like that they've seen on a regular basis, and then they've been lucky enough to get a new client or two out of those contacts? Anybody like to share any experiences they had increasing their database with professional people?
Hey, Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
Hey, one of the biggest things I think that if people are working with professional people, to ask them, your hairdresser, your barber, whoever, that you want some referrals. In the meantime, you tell them you're sending referrals to them. And if, you know, you got to work together to get it to go.
Yeah, perfect. It's always good to ask for referrals, because then the pressure's not directly pointing at them directly. It's you know, asking them for help. And often people like to help. Well, I can share with you one I had, which is quite unusual, because I didn't think necessarily it would happen. But obviously we moved over here, needed a dentist. We found a dentist. If you notice, when you go to the dentist, it's not that easy to communicate, is it? Because the dentist is talking to you and you've got your chops open and you really can't talk back. But we did eventually, you know, let him know that we were realtors. We would go there often and for the checkups and whatnot. And after about, and I'm thinking it may have been maybe 8 years or so, maybe 8 years. We had actually done a transaction with one of his secretaries, and we eventually ended up selling his home and helping him buy a new home. And he said to us, which I thought was really interesting, I really want to use you guys. I feel a bit awkward, he says, because my cousin's a realtor, but I just want to use you guys to do this deal. So we kind of felt honored about that. But that was a professional that turned into a client. And so it does happen. It may not happen, you know, in weeks or months. That one took a few years, but it did happen. So don't think that this doesn't happen. It does happen if you let people know what you're doing and that you're ready to help serve and help them with the transaction in real estate. Anybody got any other success stories they'd like to share on increasing their database with professionals or just with other, you know, personal colleagues that they have?
I do.
Thank you. That's Jenny. Is it Jenny?
Jenny Bailey.
Just saw you, Jenny. Okay, fire away, Jenny. Thanks.
So I found that it's actually very helpful to even befriend an estate attorney or divorce attorneys, you know, because you always have clients that are getting divorced and they always have clients that are divorced that need realtors. Same with the state, you know, same thing. So I found that's been helpful for me.
And how have you developed those clients, Jenny? How has it moved from sort of just a professional contact to a client? How share that process?
You know, so I worked with an estate attorney on one deal that I had with a client, and it kind of just went from there. And you know, I would tell him, hey, if I have any other clients that need your help, I'll be more than happy to refer you. If you need help on my end, you know, please feel free to reach out. And so we've actually had a pretty healthy relationship that way. And kind of the same way with divorce attorney. It was the same, you know, working with them with the client and just kind of building that relationship, because things like that actually take a long time to get through. It's not fast. So you do end up building a relationship, and you know, so I think that helps. Yeah,
that's key, Jenny. When you have the time to cultivate good chemistry between, you know, other contacts, they know that I can trust you, and often, you know, that's how they'll move from wherever they were in real estate to you as a new realtor. And I have noticed that happens quite a lot in this industry, that people do move from one realtor to another, and it's usually because of relationship circumstances that change. You know, sometimes it's family, you know, sometimes it may just move into a community or a neighborhood where, you know, now the neighbor is connected with them closely because, you know, they spend a lot of time out there in the yard or whatever, and of course they're a realtor, and then they eventually start to use them for their services. Right. So yeah, very good. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else got any comments or thoughts they'd like to add? Okay, let's look at social media. It's a big thing these days, and it's not always been available. This hasn't, you know, only in the last sort of 20 years, really, have we seen social media rise to the levels that it has and now is today. I've got some figures here I'd like to share with you. And these are the latest ones from 2020. So obviously the figures will be bigger today than they were as per these latest records. But I'm going to roll these in. And we have a look at these, and then we'll just have a chat about them, see if we can learn something from them. So we got, you know, all these big names: Instagram and YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Reddit. Of course, we've got that WhatsApp that's moving quite quickly now. So look at some of these figures. Instagram. So they're basically a kind of younger sort of folk, usually under 40, but certainly lots of teens and young adult folk. In 2020, over 1 billion monthly users. Think about that number when there's 8 billion people on the planet. So, you know, 1 billion monthly users, that's a lot of people. YouTube, of course, second, running at 2 billion. It's huge. It's a quarter of the population, if you want to measure it. It's a lot of people. And of course, Facebook's the largest at 2.5 billion. I would imagine that's close to 3 billion now. Twitter, 300 million. And you've got your TikTok, about 800 million. Pinterest is moving very, very fast and quick, 350 million, mostly female users there. Snapchat is definitely becoming more and more popular. People really like that platform. 300 million there. LinkedIn, very, very steady platform for business users, 300 million there. Reddit at 400 and WhatsApp at 1.5 billion. So think about those numbers. Now, we all don't have skills in all of these areas, but we may have skills in some of these areas. And for those of us who do have talents with social media in whichever one of these or whatever, if it's not listed here, I would suggest you look at how you might use that talent to increase your database. I'll pause there for a moment and see if anybody can share with us any of these or anything else they may be working with on social media that they're finding some success with, or maybe not success with, but they are working a platform to be successful. I know that you do social media, some of you, so let's see who I'm going to pick on. I'll pick on Melinda because I know that she will be able to give me some action on this. How you doing, Melinda? Good to have you with us today.
Melinda actually left the class. She realized she took it recently.
Ah, I know she'd be really good because she's definitely a social media lady. All right, then I have to pick someone else out my little list here. What about Cindy? Is she still with us?
I am with you, and I do not use social media so for my real estate.
Really? Do you use social media at all for anything?
Oh yeah, I use social media, but I do not use it for my real estate. So
okay, well that's going to be interesting to have a chat with you, Cindy, because you do use social media, and do you see anybody else that has you sort of linked into whatever they're doing professional wise? Do you have anybody contact you through social media? Because obviously
I do know that my son-in-law has used LinkedIn for resumes and contacting across the nation for jobs.
And how has that gone for him? How has that gone for him?
He actually had quite a few in referrals. He's in the medical reporting industry, and he actually had 30 different people reach out to him about jobs. So I think that's a way to reach a lot more contact. I'm not sure how it works unless somebody's really interested in coming here to the state.
Right,
I
gotcha.
don't have any experience on that, so.
But that's definitely a success experience with your son there. He's obviously found a nice niche
Yes.
market and activity through LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a good way of connecting to folk, and particularly on that professional basis. It does allow you to share and capture other social networks that you might be connected with. So tell me, Cindy, is there any reason why you've not considered using your skills?
Well, I'm in new construction, and
okay.
so people usually come to us.
Yes, gotcha.
So for that, so haven't done a lot, and the way that the real estate market has been in new construction through the last 2 years, I got enough clients. I don't need to go out looking for them. Just in state. I actually had a subdivision I worked up just out of town, and I had people from California, Arizona, Colorado. All these are buyers that are coming to us looking in Utah. So I was.
Yeah, can you believe that?
So.
Yeah. So just an interested question here. What do you think your percentage is for new construction clients out of state, out of Utah state? What
25% probably.
45%. Wow.
No,
yeah.
25%.
Oh, 25%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 25%. So 1 in 4.
25%. Yeah, and just what they figured that the market was kind of undervalued for second home, investment properties and resort type of things, and so that's where they came from. So it was amazing. So I was so busy, I didn't need to go looking.
Gotcha. Well, that's some interesting information you shared with us there. For any of us that are looking at using social media, to know that, at the moment, at least 25% of buyers outside of Utah are looking at new construction, that's something you can share. You can share that information. With social media, you're not just talking to people in Utah, of course, you're talking to people that live all over the country. And that's one of the benefits of using social media to connect with other folk. Anybody else got any stories or thoughts or comments or anything you'd like to share on using social media?
I do.
Perfect. Jenny, fire away.
So I joined real estate 12 years ago where social media was just kind of barely starting. And so it's still kind of hard for me to kind of, really get into that and do the videos and the YouTubes. But I do use Facebook quite a bit. And I do have a business Facebook page, and I have just my own page as well. And after a transaction, I'll usually invite my clients to like my business page. And a lot of times they'll jump over and find my other page. And I would have to say at least 6 times a year, I will have old clients, past clients reach out to me for something else just from that. And I don't think if we were on that together that they probably wouldn't have thought of me right away. But when I post something on my business page, I reshare it on my regular page. So, all of my contacts and people can see it, but I make sure, just to put a little bit of a real estate thing, maybe once a month on there, information, maybe a funny meme, something like that. But for me, I think 4 to 6 people a year isn't too shabby to come back to you from Facebook. I think it's worth it.
It's absolutely fantastic. That's great. And, the benefit is, of course, lots of people can see what you post. You post a small amount, but you don't really know who's looking at it, and you don't know where people are. You don't know where they are in their cycle of decision making or circumstances, and things change. And often people that are locked into social media, that's the first thing they'll go into, early morning, have a look around. They're not going to see everything, but they'll see some things. That if they see you and you just happen to be talking the right language at the right time, that lands on their doorstep, then of course you can pick up a contact. So excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that, Jenny.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any thoughts to share on using social media? Well, I'd certainly encourage you, if you have any interest in social media or any talent or gifts that you have a lean towards, then try and see what you can do to make that work for you in real estate. There are a lot of people out there. You look at those numbers, that's a lot of people looking at information. All right, let's look at some other little areas that you may be interested in doing. I'll load this one in and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Anybody done any blogging before? Basically, it's a way of engaging customers on a regular basis. It's a good idea for realtors that do want to do this because they can share information. They can become like an expert in a little niche market. Great idea if you've got a little following, but they, if you showcase your information, they will come back and listen to more interesting things you might have there. Has anybody here done blogging or thinking of doing blogging or know other people that may have done blogging?
Well, Stephen, how do you get into the blogging industry? For us that don't know how, what do you got to do to start this?
That's a great question. Anybody like to take that? Anybody done any blogging at all here? Well, basically, you would open up your blog account. You decide what you're going to talk about, Ryan. You may have like a little niche market in real estate that you're interested in developing, and that's what you're going to blog about. And you're going to make it interesting enough that people will want to come back and join you. And if you go online and open up, there are some nice help platforms online. They'll show you a video how to put a blog together. And the key thing is here is you're creating some information that's going to be attractive to a clientele, a group of people that hopefully will keep coming back and listen to those blogs. Anybody here listen to blogs? Anybody like they don't create blogs but like listening to a blog? No. One of my daughters, she's a blogger, and she hasn't got a huge following, but she's got regulars, and she'll go on there, and they won't be that long necessarily, but she's got a regular interested group that will listen to her blogs. So some other thoughts.
Stephen, are these like a Facebook account, or you open them up through social media and other areas?
You can see them on any social media platform, but basically it's a bit like a talking book, I suppose. You'll come up with a blog on a particular topic, and you may do a series of them, and people will get to know you. Obviously, you will have a presence somewhere on the internet, depending on which sort of platform you work with, but they'll click on the link and open up the blog, and they will listen to it. Leslie Ann, are you still on board, Leslie Ann? Let me see if she's still there. Maybe she's not. She can't hear me. I know she listens to a few blogs.
Sorry, what were you wanting?
Oh, I just wondered if you wanted to talk about Jessica's blogging.
Oh, she doesn't. Do you mean now, Jessica?
Yeah, I thought she did some
No,
blogging.
she does a podcast, not blogging.
Oh, she does the podcast. Okay, it's the podcast she does. Yeah.
But not a real estate one.
Yeah, it's actually not a real estate one. Do you know anybody that does blogging, Leslie Ann? I thought you did.
I think, oh gosh, what's his name? He's with Presidio. He's been on some of our classes.
Oh, yeah. Tyler.
Tyler, yeah.
Tyler does blogging, yeah. And what he'll do, he'll take a topic and he'll blog about it, and then the next time he comes, I think he does it like every Monday morning or something, so people know when he's going to be doing those blogs, and it'll be another, I guess, different topic within the series, and he'll go quite deep on some of those topics. But he does have a following, he has a following that will just keep coming back and listen to his information. Well, here's some other thoughts that may be interesting if you are looking at doing blogging, and thinking about what Cindy said about, a lot of people moving into Utah from outside the state. Sometimes they like to know a little bit about community. So you could be blogging about, a certain area. I put a note there, publish and talk about practical guides that may be useful for buyers that may be considering buying a home or maybe applying for a mortgage, etc. So The key thing with blogging, though, there's got to be something in there that gives the wow factor. And it's got to be attractive to get people back in. And basically what you're doing, you're sharing your credibility and you're sharing your expertise in a certain niche market. Some other thoughts on blogging here: think outside the box. If you can make them interesting, engaging advertorial posts, then you can do that on your latest listings or whatever you're working with. And of course, that will give you a sort of a stronger awareness in this area of marketing. If you're going to be on your websites and that, make sure you've got attractive graphics there. Make buttons real easy for sharing. Research your keywords, of course. Probably heard of the words SEO, search engine optimization. If you've got the correct keywords, you will bring in the correct traffic that will come in and hopefully be interested in your blogs. Podcasts, that's what my daughter does, is podcasts. And she does those about she doesn't on real estate, she does them on, I think it's yoga and exercise and being healthy. But podcast is another way of using a sort of a social media platform where you can get your message out. Anybody here do podcasts? I'll put some notes out here for podcasting, which might be helpful as we come to that next keyword. So the good thing about podcasting is it's obviously interactive because they can see you and hear you. You can be animated, you're engaging. It's a bit like having a FaceTime experience, but they're watching you without having interaction. Anybody here's done podcasts? Anybody listen to or watch podcasts? Okay, well, that's something you may consider. It's a bit like a Marco Polo, really. Those of you who do Marco Polo, you've got the family, they'll come on and they'll say their piece. The podcast is similar to that because you're watching someone deliver a message. Okay, let's go into this second keyword then. It probably is going to be podcasts. Let's have a look. There it is, podcasts, P-O-D-C-A-S-T-S. Podcast, that's the second one. If you missed the first one, reach out to Leslie Ann and she will be able to help you if you qualify in the other areas there. So podcast is the second keyword. The first one also began with the letter P, I can tell you that, but we can't share it in chat or mention it again. Anybody use any boomerangs? Anybody know what a boomerang is? And it's not that boomerang, but it is a boomerang. Anybody know what boomerangs are? Okay, so these are not too difficult to do. You'd probably be able to look at doing these. Okay, basically, if you've ever seen the silent movies like Charlie Chaplin or whatever, and that's what these boomerangs are. They're like a short burst of little videos. Have no sound. Of course, if you did like an open house or you did a tour of the home, you could put these together and you could send it out. And these are lots of photographs that go very, very quickly. And you can put them into a loop, go forward and backwards, and great for highlighting a property listing or even highlighting a property that's been sold in the neighborhood. It's just another way of sharing something you're doing. Anybody here have done boomerangs or might be interested in doing a boomerang? Or any thoughts on boomerangs? Are worth looking at because they're quick, they're fast and easy, and they will share them, particularly if they're quite amusing. Some people do them as comical sort of platform of sharing information on real estate.
If I'm correct, you're talking boomerangs on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. And I do know realtors that are quite successful at doing the boomerangs. They might just do an open house, they might just do a showing of a home, or maybe when the home's completed, they'll do a boomerang of the home being sold. You might have some, the family there or whatever, moving stuff, and they'll send it out, and people will look at it because they, particularly people that know the family or know the neighborhood, and they'll share it. So that's how you'd use a boomerang. The idea is to look at what skills you have and to see whether or not you might be able to use those skills to increase your business.
Stephen?
Yes.
Hey, I have a quick question. Could you tell me a little bit more about boomerangs? I don't know what it is. You said it's an app.
Yeah, let me pull that screen up for you. I'm not sure I put the app, where you could go on that. No, I didn't. So basically, you create a lot of different video clips. They're small video clips, and you put them together. It's a bit like watching a silent movie, a bit like the old Charlie Chaplin films, okay? And you can you put them into a loop, and people can just keep watching them, and they're not that long. They can be just a few seconds long, but you can go on and download the app from various different companies that are using boomerangs, and you just build it. You just build it with your own phone.
And it's just, and there's a bunch of people on that app, I assume, like say any other app like Instagram, they just consistently go there to look at these videos. Is that essentially what it is?
They just go on there and click on the link, and then the boomerang would come up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I do not do social media in any form, and so that was a new one though, so I'd never heard of it. Thank you.
Aaron, if you just go into your Apple, like if you got an iPhone, if you just go into where it will download, it tells you all about boomerangs, and there's free ones, and you can look and see what they do and how they do them, and then kind of get an idea from it.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
And there's different ways of doing it. Some people do some very sophisticated ones. It depends, what your skills are and what you can do, but there are some very simple ways of doing it. And as Shireen said, you can look on your application on your iPhone if you've got an iPhone, or you can just go on the internet, type in there how to build a boomerang, and it'll tell you how to do it.
I do have one thing to add to that. I know if you go to Instagram or Facebook, when you're taking a picture or posting a picture, or any type of video, you can hit the boomerang option on that. So that's another way. I know that you can download just the boomerang app also.
Yeah.
So there's a few different ways to do that. I haven't ever used it, but I might now. So
cool.
Well, it's just another tool in the toolbox. It's worth giving it a go. May work, it may not work, but if it brings more traffic into whatever social media platform you're working with, it can be another way of capturing people's attention. And that's really why I just shared it. Here's some other thoughts you may consider increasing your, your contacts' awareness of who you are and what you represent. Simple thing like answering the phone. So if you own your own brokerage company, you could say, obviously, the name of your brokerage and then your name. If you don't own the brokerage company, you could easily say your name and then obviously your brokerage. And if you answered the phone that way, every time you picked up the phone, people would be reminded that you are a realtor and which company you're with. Does anybody do that? Obviously, we do know who's calling often. Some realtors will just always answer it, that's their name and the brokerage. That's just how they answer the phone, even if it's just a personal call coming in, because what they're doing, they're reminding people when they call them that they are a real estate agent. And believe it or not, people do forget that we are realtors, so we have to keep reminding them. So that's another thing you can do to help remind people that are contacting you that you are a realtor. Any thoughts or comments on that slide? Okay. Let's talk about how we can increase the database by just locking into new groups of people. Now, load these in and then we'll just have a chat, see if anybody's had any experience or success working on any of these platforms. Let me just pull that one in again. Got a little bit stuck that one did. Okay, so joining local groups, engaging in community organizations, night classes, new social media groups, neighborhood watch, maybe coaching a small lead team, youngsters, or maybe being a volunteer and giving service somewhere. So lots of people we can add to our database by being involved in some people platforms. So let's talk about some of these, see if we've got anybody that's had any experience on doing this. So what about engaging in community organizations? Anybody here part of a community organization where they've been able to engage and maybe pick up some new clients, or maybe at least some new contacts? Let me pull Aaron back in. Aaron, you said you don't do social media. How do you find your contacts? Do you ever do any community platforms or neighborhood platforms? How do you lock into new people?
No, I'm probably not the best person to ask about any of this, because I've shifted my business over the last couple of years, because I'm not one who likes to really promote my services. And so I've found a niche in actually the commercial realm, even though I'm with a residential brokerage. I'm with Presidio. And I have someone else doing the finding for me. So I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but that's kind of the way I've shifted. But I guess one thing I will say, because I've been in this industry for over a decade, and it is important to find your niche or find a way that works for you to market your services.
Yeah, you did say something very key there, Aaron. You made it clear that you probably don't have the skills in creating new contacts from either social media or community or social events, but you did say that I employ someone else to do that. And that's a good move. If we're looking at growing our business and we maybe don't have the interrelationship skills, or not interested in, working the from the ground up was building a relationship with people, then let's find someone who can help us. And that's a good idea. You get someone who's got some talent, someone who's social, someone who knows if it's social media they're working with, and get them to work for you, and you can pay them part of a salary or commission or whatever arrangements you come up with. So that's the way in which you would do that. Let me pull in Rosemary again. Rosemary, do you have any experience working with any of these type of areas to find new contacts or anything that's not listed on there?
I actually do a lot of service work with like the sobriety and recovery people. And so that's kind of my niche, and that's why I've gotten my license. So I have a lot of, they're clean, they're getting their life together, and they need somebody that they know, and they always have trust issues. And so they want somebody they can trust to help them by their first time home. And so that's kind of where I found my niche.
Yeah, and how does that tend to develop? Obviously, you're working with these people, I suppose, on a regular basis, and you get to know, kind of, I guess, the intricate sort of chapters of their journey through life. And then they get to a stage where obviously they need to settle down. Tell us how that process works.
I'm not sure I understand your question. The process of
yes,
helping them?
Well, how do you get them to become from a contact or a friend to a client? How do you move them from someone to someone hopefully you're helping to buy or sell home for?
I guess just the trust that they have. This group really doesn't. So becoming friends, we stay friends for quite a while, and knowing that they I'm not there to take from them, or I'm not there to take advantage of them, helps them move over into, okay, I can do business with them, but we also can stay friends that way as well, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we do need to find new friends that hopefully know, like, and trust us, and then they'll, you know, be comfortable to trust us with a large responsibility to help them, you know, hopefully buy the biggest purchase that they'll probably buy in their lifetime. Good, thanks for sharing that, Rosemary. Anybody got any kids that they go to certain, I don't know, events, whether it be, I don't know, soccer or dancing or gymnastics, or they take any kids to these events? Anybody got any experience like to share when they've been able to connect with other people through, you know, maybe taking children to a place of fun? Anybody here got any children?
Stephen?
Yes, Ryan, fire away.
Well, I do a lot with the FFA programs, Future Farmers, and do a lot with the equine groups, kids.
Okay.
And I find that by getting involved with the kids and the parents, I become more friends with them, and I actually get referrals from those people, if not actual clients from them. But the FFA program, you know, makes me happy. I can teach the kids what I know about animals and farming, and they in turn send work my way.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at. Kids are a great source of good energy. Kids are a great source of good energy because that they will share what you do. If, like, you know, Ryan, you're working with the horses, you know, and they know you're also a realtor, that will come up in conversation with their parents from time to time. A great opportunity for them to get to know other things that you can help them with, or what your, you know, your other job or business is. Very good. Anybody else like to share anything on finding people from, you know, these larger groups that we get involved in? All right, let's move on. My next slide. Oh, I got stuck. Let's see. Yeah, I got stuck on that one. Let's see if we can pull in. Oh, here we go. All right, so here's some thoughts that may be helpful. I'll load these in, and then we'll have a little chat about any of these that people may have had success with as they try to increase their database. For sale by owner, of course, that's a great place to tuck in and you know, see if we can find some new clients. Anybody work with for sale by owners? And this market is probably a little bit more interesting in this market, because they are going to sell their house, that's for sure, but can they sell it at top dollar? But all these sort of areas are things we have to do in person. If we're going to do it for sale by owner, we really want to get in front of them. Same as door-to-door canvassing. Anybody done that on this class? Anybody had experience of doing door-to-door canvassing? I encourage, if you are going to do door-to-door canvassing, try and work with another realtor, or maybe work with another professional that's connected to real estate, like a lender, for instance, so you can both walk the same street and be motivated to get through those doors. I had an agent on here a couple of weeks ago, and that's all he did was door to door. He says, I'm old school. He was not an old guy, I was a young guy. So I just do door to door. I pick up all my business, he says, because people see me, they like me, and we do business. So that's all he did was door to door. Open houses, another great way of finding new people. Obviously, these people are most likely, most of them, that is, interested in purchasing a home. Obviously, there are going to be some that are going to have representation, but some may not have representation. And there are people that attend open houses that often are not looking at buying or selling their own home. They're just looking at good houses that have been decorated nicely. But you can make a good relationship with them, and that you can add them to your database. And one day, hopefully, they'll be ready to sell, and we'll use you as their realtor.
Stephen, when I moved back to Utah, I'd been out of the state for 28 years, when I moved back to Utah, I didn't want to use my family and my family because I was new, and I thought, I need to know what I'm doing before I use my family. So that's how I started my business, was open houses. I would do open houses for any realtor who would let me hold their house open. And I met phenomenal people doing that. And I was grateful. I did like 6 years worth of open houses and built a really good SOI base. And then I started helping family. I didn't help any family for 6 years, just because I felt like I really needed to know what I was doing. But that was my personal,
But you also found, Shireen, as you were going through that process, you were kind of practicing the business.
I was practicing on people that weren't related to me. Yeah.
You got to get to know all the jargon and get all the questions and figure out all the answers. And yeah, that's a great way. And if we've got new agents here that, are looking at, starting from scratch, talk to your broker and say, I'll be happy to do open houses for any other realtors, because some of the realtors may be too busy to do it. And that's probably what you found, Shireen. There was some
and back then too, the houses weren't selling with 6 offers or 20 offers in a day either, so it was a different market, but I would still check into open houses.
Yeah, we've done lots of open houses, and I would say you always get people coming through who are unrepresented. Some of them are looking at buying, which is great, but a lot of them maybe not, but they're still contacts, and they do get to see you in action, and they get to feel your energy and your chemistry, and of course, it's a contact, and you can say, well, I'll reach out to this person, in a few weeks or a few months' time, and particularly if you know roughly what they're looking for, as Shireen shared earlier, that can also be a very good way of reaching out. Anybody else had success working with open houses? Anybody here have their broker that does sort of client appreciation events? No. I would suggest you talk to your broker, just see if they do them. Most brokerages will do something, certainly the larger brokerages. And we've had quite a bit of success inviting people to those client appreciation events. They don't cost you any money. The brokerage is funding it, and all you've got to do is get your people there. I know here in Presidio, we have Rep and Cash Valley, they're having an open day. They've just literally moved offices the last few weeks or so, the last few months thinking about it. Anyway, they're doing an open house, open it to the public, and they've got some cool things going on, and all we have to do is say how many people we're hoping to bring, and that'll be a good platform for them to see what you do and to see the company you represent. So think about it. I know when I was at Keller Williams, that's where we started, and they used to do lots of client appreciation events. One of the most popular ones, every year they used to do call it Death by Chocolate. Everything was chocolate, and we could get a lot of people to that, and they would remember it because they'd remember, oh, it's the chocolate event. Yes, we'll go to that. So just be aware of what's going on so you can tap into it. There are also networking events. Anybody do any networking where they go maybe to a business networking platform, or they've got like a neighborhood networking deal that they attend? Anybody do any networking events? Or would like to? You can also start these. I know you can pay certain organizations for being part of a network event, but you can actually start your own. When we were in Harriman, one of the locals decided to just start it yourself. Say, I'm just going to invite some business people. We'll just meet, once a month at the local wherever, the local sort of fast food restaurant type place, and then we'll just talk business. And that's what he did. And it gave you opportunity to meet with other business people, and share your business cards and share your thoughts and opportunities to help, the electricians, the plumbers, the builders, the window cleaners, the realtors, and whoever came to that would be a good source of contact. So that's how you could create new contacts. We had someone in this class a few months ago, and she decided, she was a young mother, got a couple of youngsters, got a license. She thought, how can I, build my SOI? So she's decided every week she would have I forget what she called it, like a mother toddler group just in her home. And she'd have, half a dozen to 10 mothers that would come each week, and they just meet together, bit of refreshment, chat. But she found she got business from those regular meetings. So that's another thing you could think about. Social functions, community events, seminars, all good places to connect into if you're aware of what's going on in your community. Sometimes your brokerages may even have like a little booth at an event that they want manned, and you can lock into that as well, so you have some passing traffic. Any other thoughts or comments on that slide? All in person they are. Obviously, we've got. Yes.
I actually have a question.
Thank you, Chris.
Say like you're at an event that doesn't, it's not really even a networking event. What is one of the best ways to bring up the topic, of what you do, and, just without sounding too pushy, or, like, do you have?
So these might be people you don't know. You're just
people
okay.
You don't know. You're just at an event. It doesn't really have anything to do with real estate.
Right.
What is the best way to?
What I've always found, and I'm happy to listen to anybody else here, but what I've always found is to ask them what they do, be interested in what they do. I used to say to people, what do you do for fun? Because that sort of breaks the ice. And then you can ask them, if they are workers, what business they're in or what industry they work in. Once you ask them those questions, it usually ends up with them asking you the same question. And of course, when they ask, what do you do for a living? That's where you can share with them that you're a realtor. But I found asking people open-ended questions, what do they do? What sort of business are they in, or what they do for fun? People like to tell you what they do. They like to talk about themselves. We all like to talk about what we're good at doing or what we enjoy doing. And then that can spark a good conversation, and if they say, oh yeah, well, I work for such a company, you can say, do you like it? And they may say to you something like, actually, I'm looking for a different job because I'm not that happy there. And you might say, well, where are you thinking of going? And they say, well, I'm thinking of, I'm actually thinking of moving. And then, of course, you're into the real estate questions, aren't you? But I always think asking questions usually end up with that person asking you the same questions. And it's real fun when you're working with people because you can kind of see where the conversation is going to go. Once you give them the baton, you see you kind of run the race, you get them going, and then you give them the baton. It's their turn to run it, and they will spill the beans. I find they will spill the beans.
Okay, great.
If you're interested in them, Chris, they will be interested in you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Anybody else got any thoughts to add to that question that Krista asked about, how we can break the ice? Or anybody got any stories or experiences they'd like to share?
Stephen, hate to be honest.
Yes.
One of the best things I found is when I go to a function like that, I'm wearing my badge. I've got a name badge with the company I work with, and 9 times out of 10, when they see that, people see that, they'll ask me the questions, and I don't feel ashamed to tell them what I'm doing and ask them if they're interested in buying or selling real estate.
Yeah, I had an agent on here a few weeks ago, and she said when she goes to, this is a non-real estate function, she wears her badge upside down, and she says she'd be surprised how many people say, oh, you got your badge upside down, and then that creates a bit of conversation about what the badge is talking about. So that's another spark of curiosity, isn't it? It's trying to develop some interest. And even though people may not necessarily be ready to buy or sell, if you can do something that makes them remember you, then of course down the track, they are going to just have you somewhere in their little computer head. Oh, yes, maybe give that lady a call we saw at that event. What was her name? Krista. Yeah, I've got her business card somewhere, you see. And that's kind of how it develops. Good. Certainly in person is the best way. Obviously, if we are only working with, sort of our voice or text, then, we're limited to how successful we can be on that part. I put there, obviously, expired listings, you can work voice. Reconnecting with folk, we can work with voice. Obviously, we can work with voice, all the things in person as well. But these are the things that, you don't necessarily need to be a voice. Internet, which is obviously your anything to do with internet, websites, social media, of course, any of the emails that we might work with, or messaging is quite popular these days, and of course videos. Someone did mention videos earlier on, but anything working with the net, we're not personally touching them with our presence or our voice, but we are touching them with information. And so figure out where your talents are, and then try and tap into some of these pots that may be able to bring you some new contacts. New contacts are the way in which you'll build your business. When we started our business, we didn't have any contacts because we moved in from England. So we had to start from scratch. And I can't say that one particular activity was more successful than the other. All I can say is doing lots of different things all at the same time was able to build the business. I do remember asking someone early on, how long did it take you to get paid in this business? They told me 5 months. I said, you've got to be kidding. I can't wait 5 months. But that is actually how long it took us to get our first paycheck, was 5 months. But because of the amount of just prospecting we had done, by the end of that year, we'd done like 31 different transactions, and we were actually rookie for the year for 2012 in the whole lot of Salt Lake. Was such fun. So it can be done. It can be done from zero, but you've got to generate as many contacting, prospecting platforms as possible, and it probably doesn't matter which ones you do. You just got to do the ones that you can do, ones that feel comfortable to you. Any thoughts or comments on that slide? Okay, toodle along here. I'll share with you some other thoughts that may be helpful. When you're working with direct mail, of course, this is just going to land on there. In England, we say doorstep, but over here it's in the mailbox. Consider these. So, we had a lot of success with door hangers and postcards. But these are some things you can think about. If you are working with door hangers, try and lock into another company like a lender. That door hanger on the far right there. We have our information on one side, and we have the lender information on the other side. Lender pay for the printing. So lots of lenders do have a budget that they can help on some of these costs, and then you've just got to get the information out there. Same with your postcards. You can slip those into the doors fairly easy. If you're sending, newsletters out, often you can send that out electronically, which can be helpful. Another one that is sticky notes. Some people use just a sticky note, they just stick it on the door. But all of these options work to a certain extent as long as they are regular. Whatever you decide to do, try and do it, every few months, so that people can be reminded of who you are and what you do. We've had it happen where, someone has said, I'm calling you about your postcard. I'm thinking, postcard? When did I send that one out? It was like 10 months ago, and they've kept it. And so they do have, sometimes they have a good life in the home. People look at it and think, yeah, I'm interested in that, but I'm not interested now. But down the track, I should give these people a call. Any comments or thoughts on that slide? Okay, here's another area you may consider when you're trying to build your database, is figure out whether or not you want to get involved in some sort of incentives. So I'll load these in. Some different realtors do these in different ways. So anybody do any trade shows or giveaways or competitions or surveys, coupons, little discount coupons, or maybe goodie vouchers? These aren't necessarily going to bring you business today, but if you do them on a regular basis, whichever ones you try, they can get your name around. At the moment, what we do we're in a very small town, less than 1,000 people that live in this town, and every month we send out, or every month or 6 weeks or whatever it is, we'll send out a little postcard that may have a type of discount or a coupon on it that we work with our brokerage on. And people say, "Oh, thanks for that." And I say, "Yep, anything free, I like to share it around." And doesn't really have much to do with real estate, but there's a giveaway. It might be a free taco or a free dessert or buy one, get one free, whatever it may be that we've got going on with a local company there. Figure out what it is you can do with where you're working and give them a go. Competitions are quite fun. People do like to file a competition, and if there's a little prize there at the end, that can generate some good contacts. People like short, so you can do surveys, make sure they're short and sweet and easy to respond. Giveaways are always fun. If you're working with a function where there might be a small giveaway, people always like something that's free. Anybody got any thoughts or comments or questions on any of those items on that slide? Does anybody do anything when it comes to giving away incentives for either clients or contacts?
I have a question.
Yeah. Fine.
Is there a dollar amount when you're doing giveaways and vouchers and things like that you have to be careful not to go over?
That's a great observation. So we actually have a team of realtors that we're not part of this team, but we do know there's a team of realtors in our brokerage. And what they do, they work with a local, it's kind of like a cafe type restaurant place. And they pay, what happens is they have these little printed vouchers and they send them out. And it basically says, go here and get your free whatever it is. It might be a free ice cream or a free cookie or whatever it may be. And when they go to this cafe place, obviously they'll give them the card. The cafe place will hold those cards and they will charge them whatever it was cost for those small items. So there is a charge for that one. Okay, it's small, but it seems to work for them. They know they're going to get so money that will eventually turn into clients, but they're probably paying maybe a few dollar or $1 or $2, per card. The one that Leslie Ann and I do, we work with the brokerage. The brokerage has a deal with a local company where they'll say, yeah, we'll do a deal and it will be buy one, get one free. Or if they buy this, we give them this free. And so that one doesn't cost us anything because the brokerage has done like a deal with that particular company. All we've got to do is pay for the printed material. And then we actually mail them out. So we pay for the postage. But it doesn't actually cost us anything for the giveaway, if that makes sense.
I think my question is, like, if you're doing a giveaway, say you're doing a giveaway and you're going to give away a TV, is there a price limit that you have to stick with?
Oh, that's a good question. I misunderstood that. Well, yes. That is a good question. I don't know if there's a price limit to that. If you were putting it under, I guess, a competition or a survey, probably just have to check if there are any restrictions. I'm not aware there are. I do know, though, that if you are going to give a prize away like that, you do have to notify everybody somewhere. So they have to be able to go somewhere. It's like if they filled out a survey and they say there'll be a prize draw and there's a giveaway of whatever it is, they've got to be able to go somewhere to see when that prize draw was done and who received it, and that they did receive it. It's got to be accountable somewhere. I do know that has to be done.
Okay.
But I don't know if there is a limit on how big that price should be.
Okay.
It's a good question. Probably need to find that one out. But certainly, you've got to look at these options, because some of these or one of these may fit your character. And if it does, then give it a go and maybe be successful. Maybe it won't, but at least you'll learn something from it. You'll learn what does work and what doesn't work. Anybody else know any answer to Jenny's question on, I guess, an amount you could give away? I don't know the answer to that.
I think it comes down to whatever you can afford.
Yeah, I think she was asking, Ryan, whether or not there is any rules that we need to abide by as far as you couldn't give a certain amount. As far as I
Well, and
understand,
it's because when you do, your client appreciation gifts and things like that, we've got our rules as real estate agents as to how much. So
on that one, it's definitely 250. 250 is your maximum on that one. But I'm not aware of a limit on this.
Okay.
But that's a good question. I'll try and find out to see if I can find an answer to that one. That's a good question. Good. Any other thoughts or comments on giveaways? As we get into the last run of this, I'm just going to run these last few slides through for you. Just to be aware that, people do like appreciating. So, and we've just talked about client appreciation there. It's important that we do what we can to help people know that we appreciate them. I was going to load that one in again, it got stuck. Even just a card thanking them. Obviously, if we've got a client, we can certainly give them a gift, but just remembering people, certain important events in their life, whether it be a birthday or an anniversary or whatever you feel is comfortable, that person we feel comfortable receiving. It's a good idea to build that into your strategy when you're working with marketing to your clients. And sometimes, as I mentioned there, it's just a case of sharing some good news with folk. It's just having contact so that people can be mindful who you are and what you represent. Any questions or thoughts on that slide? This is really important. We can get real busy doing nothing if we're not careful. So be careful when you look at your notice board at the beginning of the week and there are that many things to do and you're thinking, goodness me, how can we get all this done today? It's really important to figure out the priority of what's important. We can work, we can be busy and not actually getting anywhere if we're not careful in this industry, because we're in the sales industry. So look at what comes easy for you to do first. I would suggest you get those done so they're done and out of the way. Careful you use your time wisely. Careful you don't spend too much money looking for leads or doing expensive things in your business. Make adjustments when you need to make adjustments. Don't keep doing something if it's not going to work. Sometimes it may work for someone else and not work for you. So don't get discouraged on that. Sometimes it's not that we're doing something wrong. It's just not working. It's just not a good fit for us. So all the things you can do, build up your database, find new people, try and be smart. You're going to do one thing at a time. Whatever you do first, do it well, and try not to get discouraged if some things are not working out for you, but they've worked out for someone else. Figure out what's a good fit for you. Okay, so that's our third keyword coming up here, which is prioritize. That should be flashing on your screen now. Prioritize, prioritize. The other two keywords were also beginning with the letter P. If you missed those, talk to Leslie Ann. I cannot mention them again or share them in the chat. Prioritize is the third one. So some thoughts, and you're working on your database. Obviously, as you get new information, update it. So make sure it's up to date and use it. Having a good up-to-date database is of no use if we're not going to be using it. Clean it often, and not just clean the information that's on there, but make sure whatever software you're using that it's clean, in case you have to move from one device to another, that it's going to be up to date with whatever app you're using on that database. Any comments or thoughts on that screen? All right. Well, this is what we covered today. We looked a little bit about the importance of a customer database, how important it is to get the information correct right from the outset. There is always benefit if we can reconnect to folk we may have lost contact with, or even not contacted for many months or years. And just think about Shireen's story there. Reconnecting for her was a good paycheck. And so, you know, it can happen to you as well. Look at ways of increasing your database. Lots of different ways of doing that. Obviously, make sure we appreciate the people that are helping us in our business and having the confidence and trust to give us an opportunity to work with them. And there are lots of things we can do in this business. We can't do it all the time. So prioritize those things that are important to hopefully make a difference. And if something's not working, then that's okay. Try something new. There's lots of different things we can do. Anybody got any thoughts or comments as we close up this class today? Any comments or thoughts that you may want to add into today's class? Anybody learn anything?
I have a comment.
Yes,
Steve, I think the best way to network is word of mouth. And if you always treat somebody well, they will refer you to somebody that they know. And I think referrals are one of the most powerful, underutilized sales techniques that we can have. So I love when I get a referral and I treat them like gold. So
yeah, that's a great comment, Cindy. Thanks for sharing that. We had one, I think a couple of years ago, thinking now, was it last year, the year before? Had someone call us up, and this was not a client, believe it or not. This was the parent of a client. Can you believe that? So it wasn't the client. We'd bought a house for a client, maybe I'm thinking 4 years or even 5 years earlier, right? But the parent of the client calls us up from, I think it was Colorado, and says, hey, I've got someone, you sold, or you bought a house for our daughter, and I've got a friend who wants to move to Utah from Colorado. I think it was Colorado. It's either Colorado or Nevada. It was one of those. And that's how we got a client. So that was it was not our actual client. It was the parent of a client that referred to us. So as Cindy says, look after your people, because you don't know who they're talking to. And customers that come from referrals are definitely like gold. Thank you. All right, well, we're going to finish up this class. I really appreciate those of you who attended today. I'm certainly grateful for your comments, sharing your thoughts and experiences, stories. I just remind you,